Hi, Joe.
Hi.
I just kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit today about environmentalism and how it has impacted society or society's kind of attitude towards the environment, how that's changed, maybe kind of the attitudes and how it was viewed 30, 40, maybe 50 years ago, and how the attitudes of people or how we view it is either similar or different than to how we look at environmentalism today.
Okay. Sure.
So I know that you've mentioned that you haven't always lived in Fort Wayne. You've lived a little bit of
Yes.
everywhere throughout the
Mhm.
U.S.
hmm
Have you noticed any difference in like location in regards to how people view the environment?
I started grade school on the East Coast in Rhode Island.
Okay.
So at that time, it was, of course, we lived a couple blocks from the ocean. There was, at that time, no thought about controlling fishing or shellfish. You could go down and you got all you could eat lobster for $3 any night you wanted to.
Wow.
It was very plentiful.
Yeah.
There was no real thought about the environment or the ocean at that time. And I know now there is. At the same time, my family lives in Pensacola, Florida, down on the Gulf Coast.
Mhm.
So when they had the oil spill in the Gulf, it was very direct. They were directly affected by that. So you can compare the East Coast back in the '60s to the Gulf Coast in the 2000s. I forget when that was.
Mhm.
Big difference in the environment. Back then in Rhode Island, we didn't care. Get as many clams and lobsters and fish as you want. Where in the Gulf Coast now, you're worried that every fish that shows up dead is going to have an impact.
Mhm.
And it was a big impact to the um, fishing down there, especially the shrimpers. So those two places, I love the ocean,
Yes.
my
I do
favorite
too.
place. So it's like, but I love seafood. So yes, I'm very cautious about, concerned about seafood because I want it sustained.
Sure.
Mhm.
Right. So even just like the safety
Yes.
and where your food is coming
Yes.
from.
That oil spill was very traumatic. And I know we went down there and they were still finding the oil balls on the sand. And that really was bone chilling for someone who loves the ocean.
Mhm.
And the sand down there is like sugar. And you had black spots on it.
Right.
So that's something that we've never dreamt about that when I was growing up.
Right.
Even when they started drilling for oil. Okay, fine, everything was fine until something happens.
Mhm. So have you noticed a difference maybe from like when you were a child, when you were younger?
Mhm.
How important was environmentalism to people back then? Was it something that was really talked about much?
No, not at all. No, this is nature. We'll always have these.
Mhm.
We don't have to worry about anything. The invention of plastic bags instead of paper bags. Wow, they're lighter. Their handles, they're fantastic.
Mhm.
Bottled water was a big deal.
Right.
Wow, we never thought about the impact
Right.
and the
It's
volumes.
more of the convenience of
Oh,
how it was helping
yeah.
the consumer.
A plastic shopping bag was fantastic, and now what is it? Out in California, they banned them.
Yeah.
And I recycle all of them.
Mhm.
But when they first came out, wow, these are great things.
Can you remember kind of approximately when you started noticing a turning point from there really being no recognition of the damage being done to the environment to when people started to go green or be more conscious?
I think it's probably in the late '70s, '80s, perhaps. Once we came out of the Vietnam War era, we all became you always had to have a cause.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so traumatic for us that after that we're looking for, once the war was ended, what can we do, and then save the planet.
Yes.
And then we started looking at the population, the global population boom. The first one I remember the impact was for China,
Mm-hmm.
that China was going to have more people in it than the rest of the world. And then, of course, they limited children.
Right.
I forget when that was, but that was really radical.
Right. How about in like regards to, I guess maybe like what's the word that I'm looking for? Um, Advocacy or advertisement. You see a lot of it now on things that, and I think some companies even use it to their benefit as almost kind of a fad. Like people want to buy this certain product or purchase food from a certain place because it's more environmentally friendly.
Save the environment.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. So how about in regards to that, would you say that happened around kind of the same time as you noticed
Yes. I don't think really there's any type of advertisement like that until there was some type of a crisis. I forget when they started having problems with water pollution. The Love Canal in New York. And again, I forget when that was. And Lake Erie was thoroughly polluted. That was a real change, that people started paying attention. And at the same time, industries and companies started tacking onto that. Some of them used it to their advantage. I know there were some commercials that were very, started promoting their safety. They're environmentally safe. And then there were others that were how they were helping. It's very recent, but I know Dawn detergent is one that I remember. I thought it was a very good marketing campaign that you could use Dawn. I think it's Dawn or maybe it's Joy on birds that were oil
Dawn.
spill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a great marketing
tool.
But before that, it's like, oh well.
Yeah.
But no, growing up, it was like we're always going to have the environment.
Yeah.
We're always going to have the land.
So it seems like environmentalism was maybe more of a reaction to
after the Vietnam War. Really.
Yes. Yeah. So once we started,
because
started being negatively affected by it.
Yes.
We realized that
there were always environmentalists. Guthrie, I think his name, I forget the singer. This land is your land.
Yes.
That was an environmental one, but it was just a song. Nobody paid attention to it. Woody. But then gradually, like after the Vietnam War was ended, people needed a new platform. They needed something to go to, and that's when environmental issues really started becoming quote popular.
Right.
And then popular has now come to second nature. I hope it's second nature to most people.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that the advocacy and the awareness and even the businesses that kind of maybe use it to their advantage gives the consumer more knowledge on what they're using too, so that, you're not kind of blindly going into, purchases of things that you may not realize the kind of negative effects that it may have on the environment.
Yes, because I just was on a business trip and I saw in the airport, it was a water bottle, and they were very plainly advertised that they were repurposed, reused.
Okay.
And I would have thought about that, even probably 10 years ago. I thought, well, fine, I'm not going to worry about it. But I looked at that and thought, oh, okay, I'll get that water. Because they're doing something as opposed to the other water bottles that just get, thrown away.
Absolutely.
And there are pens and all kinds of things now that are recycled, reused. And that never happened in the 60s or early 70s even.
Yeah, because even recycling now, most households have a recycling bin. I know we have one out in the garage.
And that was, when you were, that was a nuisance when that first came out. What do you mean I have to separate my trash?
Right.
And now, we wouldn't think of it.
Right.
In fact, my husband spent 20 years as a garbage man.
Oh, really?
Sanitation engineer. And he is very much recycle. He goes through the trash to make sure I recycle everything I can because he sees the landfill.
I was going to say, I'm sure seeing the effects of all that garbage going into the earth.
Right. And 30 years ago, it was this little pile, and now it's a huge pile.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you talking with me today and sharing the information and your perspective on environmentalism.
Sure.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we wrap up the video?
No, it unfortunately reminds me about how many years I've forgotten the 80s completely, apparently. I can go from the 70s to the 90s. I don't remember what we did in the 80s, so don't take that.
A lot of hairspray.
Yeah, don't take that as what I did in the 80s. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
No problem.